From using bodies to using just 4 basic ingredients and minimal effort, okay? Just as effortless as the dance moves you saw, you can make this freshly baked whole wheat artisan bread right in the comfort of your own home. How's that? I like it. It is great for Samis, but even better, you know, when you make it into croutons for your favorite soup, and we made a soup earlier on, so thank you. You're welcome. Jay, it's so good to see you.
Tubbs, that soup looks amazing. Listen, I'm a fan of, what do we call it? Bunchies. I'm a huge fan of soups, especially now that we're getting into the colder season.
Yeah.
This is one of my favorite breads to make because it's so simple. As you alluded to, 4 ingredients. We've got whole wheat flour in here. We've got some yeast. We've got some salt. Remember, on opposite side of the bowl, they don't really like each other too much.
But you want to keep them separated.
Yeah, but there's one person that they do both like, and that's the water. So we're going to put the water in, and then that's when we can start mixing the dough together. We're doing just a little bit of water at a time.
I'm obviously very inquisitive around these things. Why don't they like each other? What happens when they do mix at the same time?
Remember that yeast is a living thing, right? So the minute you add salt, it actually can kill the yeast.
Oh.
Yeah, and stop it from activating in the recipe, stop it from growing.
I see.
So that's why initially you want to just have them on opposite sides of the bowl and then bring them together.
Suss it out.
Yeah. But you know what? At the end of the day, you need salt in the dough because it adds flavor.
Yes.
And you know, with this sort of artisanal bread, we're doing more of a longer fermentation. So once we bring the dough together, we're not going to do the traditional way or how people usually, you know, respond to bread making, where you work the dough, you know, vigorously on the counter. So we're just going to stir this together. You can see that it's quite a nice wet dough, right, Tubbs?
Teach me like I'm in like grade 1. What do we mean when we say artisanal?
Artisanal. So basically, artisanal breads are more homemade, you know, not super processed. You're using a lot more natural flours and ingredients, and also the fermentation is longer. So instead of leaving it to rise only for an hour, you do longer, you know, slower fermentation. So
the bread must look like it comes out of the Bible, from biblical days.
It's sort of, I mean, those, you know, fancy en vogue coffee shop vibes, you know, that's what we're going to. So we've made our dough, Tubbs. You can see it's nice and shaggy.
Correct.
Okay, so we're going to cover this with a damp tea towel, and we're actually going to let this rest for actually overnight.
Okay,
so that's the way you get that really nutty, you know, flavor in the bread.
Which is, I would say, about 8 hours, would you say?
Exactly.
Okay, cool.
So just overnight, and then once you wake up, the bread's woken up too. So you can see that it's nice and aerated, nice and soft.
Looks like oats.
Exactly. So that's the whole wheat flour, and that's why we're using the whole wheat flour, because it has a lot more texture, that nuttiness, you know, warming. We're getting cozy this winter.
I love all of those things.
Exactly. So what we've done also, Tubbs, is we've actually heated up a cake tin.
Look at him.
So the ideal thing would be to use a Dutch oven, because that gets that real crusty texture on the outside. So we're just using a cake tin today.
Okay.
And we're not going to play around with our dough too much. I'm just going to dab my fingers a little bit in some oil.
And using a cake tin does show you that whatever the utensils you've got at home, you certainly can make this yourself at home. You don't have to have the fancy stoves or ovens and all of that.
Exactly. So you could use a Dutch oven. That's ideal. But we're just going to use our cake tin. And you can actually use a cast iron pan, anything that has a lid. But we're going to use our cake tin. So I'm just going to pop that in the center of our tin. Just give it a bit of a flattening down, because it will rise up nicely. And then for that artisanal feel, you can use, you know, a knife to just create the crisscross shape.
You are not cutting it into 4 pieces. No, you are not.
But that cutting it also increases the surface area, so the heat goes into those folds and cooks the bread a lot quicker. So that's also another reason why it's good to just give your bread a bit of a cut. We're going to put some pumpkin seeds over here. Again, just bringing that nutty toastiness to it. Some Malden salt.
I do love that the opportunities to enjoy this bread are almost endless. I mean, whether this was with soup or with what I certainly would do in this instance, maybe it's because I've already had the soup, is have it with butter like what you've done here in our finished product, which just looks so glorious.
And we've got one that we've baked for about 45 minutes earlier. And remember, the way to test if your bread is baked, Tubbs,
Oh, okay, I almost said you clap it. Jay, you have once again impressed. Love this. Go on to afternoonexpress.co today. Get it now. Stay in your cozy seats as well, because we're going to be chatting about ways to unlock your creativity during the colder months.